Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend, and we'll go ahead and get started here. So first thing is the 5-minute moneymaker. A lot of guys wonder, do you really help the client and get on the phone with them to get that money moved? Yeah, that's exactly what we do. And here, last week's 5-minute moneymaker was an actual recording of a client and advisor making that 800 call. So if you're not doing that, boys, you gotta do that. You got to do that. On the Medicare workshop, I know a lot of guys jumped on that and they're doing it. So I did have an outline for the script for what you should say when they get to that first meeting. But some people want me to tell them exactly what to say. So here is the exact script of what to say when it comes to those healthcare concerns. You know, this is the goal script. We call it healthcare concerns with the client. What you should do with for each of those healthcare goals. So want more income, the tax ones, the long-term care ones, all of them that are on there. You can find that under the events, I-65 Medicare, and then down here with the script, you can find those exact words and how to handle the those goal scripts. So found this when I was in my newsfeed last week. A bear market catalyst is lying in wait for stocks, warns UBS. So if you've listened to some statisticians, you could have seen Mondays, and that was last Monday's bullish session, and a fresh record of the S&P 500 coming from a mile off. Yeah, because everybody can always see it after it happens, right? But our call of the day from strategists at the UBS warns a big threat that is lying in wait for equities, earning expectations. Every bear market in the past 50 years has witnessed an actual decline in S&P 500 forward earnings, says lead strategist Francois Trayan, who lays out a deteriorating landscape on a note for clients. He says the consensus of year-on-year growth in the S&P 500 forward earnings has dropped to a mere 1% from a peak of 23% last September. So is that a big or a small fall, guys? Is that a big or a small fall? Yeah. Oh, let me get over here. It's a huge. Yeah, it's huge. So I have to get your comments so I can see what you're saying to me. Ultimately, the most vulnerable macro backdrop for equities occurs when forward earnings growth turns negative for leading economic indicators that are trending downwards, pushing price-to-earnings ratios lower. So you can see here, every time that there was a earnings per share in S&P 500 downturn, you saw a downturn in the market. But he also suggests investors do not count on the Fed throwing stocks a lifeline here because interest rates and equities are positively correlated at this point. So guys, did you hear that? Interest rates and equities are positively correlated at present, which means if interest rates are lower, stocks will follow, as was the reaction after the last two cuts. So what's that say about the Fed being able to get us out of a mess? They will or they won't be able to? Yeah, they won't. So what is, and push comes to shove, what is the biggest push on the stock market in the end? You know, there's lots of psychological indicators, but in the end, what's the real economic indicator that's going to tell us what directions the stock market's going to go? Earnings. That's right, Kirk. Earnings. And what do we say is happening to earnings here? Slowing or speeding up? Yeah, dropping. Kind of change the subject here. This is the time use on an average workday for an employed person's ages 25 through 54. So about 7.6 hours sleeping. That's pretty darn good because we need to get our sleep. 8.8 hours of working-related activities. 2.5 hours of leisure sports, whether that's actual doing something or watching TV. It's the same thing, leisure. Household activities, eating, drinking, caring for others, and 1.7 other. So that's your total 24 hours. So what's the number, if you, for your business, at least when it comes to 5Q, what's the number one thing you can do to improve yourself in a day? What's the number one? All right, glad David's got it. Lonnie's got it. Bob's got it. So 4 people got it. Marcia's got it. Good job. Dale's got it. The 15-minute drill. The 15-minute drill. Because the 15-minute drill is having you learn to become a better communicator. It's making sure that instead of telling, selling, preaching, and teaching, that you're asking open-ended questions to listen to what's on other people's minds. Guys, if we could read our clients' minds, how much money would we make? If we could read our spouse's minds, how great would our relationship be? If we could read our kids' minds, how great would our relationship be? If we could read the minds of a maitre d' that lost our reservation, how easy would it be to get that reservation fixed? That's unlimited. It's unlimited. And guess what the 15-minute drill is teaching you how to do? To read people's minds. Think about this. Every single thing that we do in the 15-minute drill is designed to get people to talk more. So you may be listening, how am I patting people on the back using the APE, the agree, the parrot, and the empowering. If you're great at patting people on the back when they give you the right answer, will they talk more or less? They'll talk more. If I'm listening to, whether I'm making statements or asking questions, if I'm asking questions, they're going to talk more. If I ask open-ended questions instead of closed-ended questions, they're going to talk more. If I laugh at their jokes, they're going to talk more. If I don't over-talk at them, they're going to laugh more. If I apologize when they give the wrong answer, they're going to talk more. And when they're talking more, what are they doing, guys? When people are talking more, what are they doing? They're telling us what's on their mind. They're allowing us to read their mind. So there is no more important 15 minutes in a day than the 15-minute drill, because it's teaching you how to read people's minds. And everything in life would be better if you could read people's minds. And yet when I ask most guys if they're doing the 15-minute drill, guess what comes out of their mouth? Not as good as I should be. So think about this. Coming into your office, a lot of people will look at their email. A lot of people will look at their voicemail. A lot of people will pick up the paper. Guys, if you did not read your emails for 15 minutes, would that affect your profitability at all? If you did not listen to your voicemail, would that affect your productivity at all? So then why do people not want to do it? It's certainly not because they're worried about making more money or losing money. So why do people not like the 15-minute drill? So one answer, hard to change habits. I think Dale's got it. Nick's got it. Well, Bob, I'd agree. Bob says it's work, but it's well, I would agree with you, Bob. It is work. And I'd agree with Nick and Dale when they say it's outside their comfort zone. We don't want to what are you doing in a 15-minute drill? What are you looking for in a 15-minute drill? It's not about being lazy. I would disagree. I do not think it's about being lazy. We're listening. Ben's got it. We don't want to hear Kirk's got it. We don't want to hear our mistakes. We don't want to hear our mistakes. Because here's the thing. It's a lot of, when we talk to guys and say, how many appointments did you get at a seminar? How many that people that came in moved on to the next meeting? How many people from that were at a second meeting closed? And I can't tell you, and Jeff can probably chirp in here, how many times people have told me, no, they did the seminar perfectly. No, they did the agreement meeting with the goals perfectly. No, I did the second meeting, the disclosure meeting, the advisor activity meeting perfectly. Guys, if you did a seminar perfectly, what's your appointment ratio? What should you be looking for appointment ratio? 80%. If you do the goal meeting perfectly, how many people should go that you want to go? People with money. How many of them should go to the second meeting? 100%. Yeah. And if you do the 21-point checklist perfectly, in which they tell you 21 different times there are guys taking advantage of them. I'm sorry, not 21, 19 times out of the 21-point checklist, 19 times that their guys taking advantage of them, how many are they going to move? 100%. And yet I have conversations with people, and they'll insist that they did it right or they did it pretty darn good, but it didn't move forward. And then I say, well, let's listen to the tape, and what do they tell me? They taped or didn't tape? So why don't people tape? Why don't people tape? Yeah. Because if we don't tape, what can we convince ourselves of? That it was our fault, or that it was not our fault? That we did the perfect job and this guy was just, or gal or couple was not closable? Why don't we tape? Because if we don't tape, we can pretend like it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. What do you tell your children when they tell you it wasn't their fault? So the 15-minute drill is a very easy way for you to fix everything overnight, or just get 1% better every night or day. Just get 1% better every day. And here's the great thing about the 15-minute drill. Have you guys ever had a day when nothing got done? It was like you're chasing your tail. It's now 5 o'clock and nothing got done. You ever had a day like that? It's pretty frustrating. But if you do the 15-minute drill, what can you say? Something did get done. I got 1% better. So you got to do that 15-minute drill. Because here's the thing. 8 hours times 60 minutes, that means there's 480 minutes in a workday. That means there's 32 15-minute periods available in a workday. So that means I'm asking you to spend how much of your time getting better? Half your day? 10% of your day? If you can't spend, and is this of your entire 24-hour day or just your 8-hour workday? It's just your 8-hour workday. If you can't spend 3% of your 8-hour workday getting better, what does that say about an advisor who wouldn't spend 3% of their time trying to get better every day? What does it say about an advisor? That they're interested in getting better, or they're not serious? Yeah, not serious. Everybody's saying not serious. So guys, do that 15-minute drill. It's got to be, it's your lifeblood. If you do that 15-minute drill, it will change your relationships with your spouse, with your children, with anybody you talk to, and most importantly, with your prospects and your clients. 3% invested will give you how much of a reward? So I want to talk a little bit today about persuasion. Now, we all know, or should know, Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion: social proof, commitment, reciprocation, liking, authority, and scarcity. But I want to talk about the persuasion of the classics, the Greek orators. What did they, and can we agree that those of you that have studied them in college or whatever it may be, the Greek orators, how convincing and motivating were they? Extremely. I mean, they invented rhetoric. So we're going to talk about the 9 persuasions that the Greek classic orators used to convince an audience of a point or their point of view. And so again, this is about dropping ideas into people's heads in a group environment, not one-on-one. So the 9 principles of persuasion oratory for group presentations. Number 1 is put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their shoes. And too many times when I'm listening to a workshop or a seminar, when somebody sends me a video or a tape, what's occurring in the guy or the gal's head as she or he is giving that presentation? Are they worried about what the crowd is thinking, or are they worried about what they're saying? Yeah, they're telling, selling, preaching, and teaching. So I do this whenever I'm writing a script, whenever I'm putting together a workshop. I'm always thinking these 3 questions from the client's or the prospect's point of view. I think they're wondering, what's your point? So when I say something, guess what I think that person I'm saying it to? What's your point? What's your point? Why does that affect me? Why does your point matter to me? So what? So let's talk about a tax presentation. So if you're going on and on and on about capital gains, where do most people have their money? Where do most retired people have their money? Yeah, IRAs, 401ks. So when you're going on and on and on, a third of your presentation or 25% of your presentation about capital gains, guess what they're thinking? All my money's in it doesn't apply to me. I don't have that much money in stocks outside of my retirement account. Almost all my stocks are inside my retirement account. So you got to be thinking when you're presenting, does that even apply to the people you're talking to? Get into their shoes. So why would I spend much time talking about capital gains to people who are retired? I wouldn't. Where would I put the lion's share of my time? Talking about money that's in IRAs, 401ks, etc. Does that make sense? Think about the subject you're presenting from their point of view. Put yourself in their shoes. And how much time would you want to be? So that's just one simple example of when you're presenting, think, is this even important to them? If I was sitting in their shoes, I would say, wow, this is a waste of my time. Or would I say, wow, that's important to me. You have to put yourself into their shoes. Number two, persuasion is not a debate. You probably all have heard me talk about when I was making $50,000 a year, I was an awesome debater. When I listened to my tapes, I proved my point. I was smarter than them. They were dumber than me. I was right. They were wrong. I proved my point. What happened? I made $50,000. And do you think if I did it one-on-one, do you think I did that at my workshops too? Yeah, I did. I made sure everybody in that room that what they were doing was stupid and what I was arguing was smart. See, you cannot win an argument with an argument. Persuasion is not a debate. It's a win-win. You win by letting the client win. And isn't that what you're doing with motivational interviewing? Isn't that what you're doing? You're getting them to do what you'd like them to do by telling them they should do that or facilitating a conversation where they feel like they're making their own decision. And how many of us like to make our own decision? We all do. So should we only use motivational interviewing in a one-on-one, or should we use motivational interviewing on a one-on-one, and we should also use it when we're speaking to a group? All the time. That's right, all the time. Number three, persuasion begins way before the presentation. So Jeff, can I get you to get on the call here?
Yep, I'm here.
One of the pet peeves I hear you talk about all the time, and this is not necessarily about a workshop, sometimes about a workshop, but one of the pet peeves I hear you give me all the time is when a guy calls you up and says they need help, and then they follow up that I need some help with a time limitation. And what is that time limitation?
Usually they tell me, I'm meeting with this couple tomorrow or this afternoon, and I'm not sure what these graphs mean or what this is supposed to be. And I always tell people, the analogy that I always give is if somebody invites me to their house for dinner and they're serving chicken sandwiches, it's fine. I'm not complaining. You invited me over to your house. I'm not there for the food. I'm there to hang out. So am I going to be upset or am I going to say anything? No. But do I know that you didn't put a lot of work into it? That you just threw some chicken on the grill and put it between, two pieces of bread? I mean, if you are getting ready for a meeting the day before, it's fine. They're not going to complain. They're just grateful that you're putting in any effort and that you're willing to sit down with them and spend time with them. But they know that you didn't put a lot of effort into it. You're not fooling anybody.
So if you want to be great, you need to prepare. When I was running my 30 appointments a week, I did all my preparation on Saturday mornings. Thanks, Jeff, for that. So I was prepared for the whole week, a week before, so that if I had a sticking point, how much time did I have to fix that sticking point? Days to fix that sticking point. So let me give you an example of some of the, to the degrees that the Greek orators went to be prepared. Demosthenes' dream was to be a great orator, but he had a speech impediments. He's ridiculed early and often for his deficiencies, but he never quit. Here are some of the things he's rumored to do. He corrected his defective elocution by speaking with pebbles in his mouth. He prepared himself to overcome noise by speaking in stormy weather on a seashore. He recited verses while running to improve his breathing and cadence. Listen to this one. He passed 2 or 3 months in an underground cave practicing his oratory. And guys, was he practicing for 2 or 3 months? Was he practicing many different speeches, or one speech for that 2 or 3 months? One. And he shaved half his head to prevent himself from leaving the cave because it was too embarrassing. So he knew he did not have the personal discipline to stay in that cave for 2 or 3 months to practice that speech. So he shaved half his head so he'd be too embarrassed to leave, to make him stay that 2 or 3 months. He hung a sword, another example, he hung a sword at above shoulder level so that if when his shoulders rose to create an awkward physical posture, the sword would prick him, triggering him to Lord. And these are the kind of, this is over the top. But could we all use a little bit of that kind of dedication to learn to speak better? So here's some of the things that this expert who looked at Demosthenes recommended. He said, write it out. I always write out a speech I will deliver. Then I edit it, and then I rewrite it. I do this 4 or 5 times. It's this point that I begin the process of shortening the speech to bullet points, then shortening the bullet points until there's nothing left to eliminate. All that's left are key words and phrases. You don't have to confine yourself to a cave to do this. Just find a quiet place and write it. Videotape yourself. I have a studio that I use in my garage. I set up a video camera to adjust the settings and begin. This is an extremely effective way to feel not only messaging and verbal delivery, but also the paralanguage, the expressions, the gestures that you use. Record your voice. I often complement the use of video camera with the use of a dictaphone so I can focus entirely on my verbal delivery. We talked about this 3 or 4 weeks ago about how to speak in a deeper, more resonant voice. People trust that. Practice in front of people. In addition to solitaire preparation. Remember last week I was talking about ultra learning, and that guy that went from never delivered a speech, and within 1 year won the world championships for Toastmasters. Guess where he practiced his speeches? This is hilarious. Guess where he practiced his speech? Now, you can't do this, but guess where he practiced his speeches? In front of middle schoolers. Why? Why did he practice in front of middle schoolers? Short attention span was one thing. They're also what? They do have a short attention span. That wasn't, honest. Honest, how so? Brutally honest. They're highly critical, especially of adults, right? So he knew that if he was losing them, if they thought he was being a dork, that this was not a good speech. So that's how he practiced. Exercise and deliver. I often run a few 100-yard sprints and then immediately retreat to my garage, winded to practice to get my posture and breathing right, breathing from the diaphragm. You don't have to run sprints, and any exercise gets your heart rate up and adrenaline pumping. So why do you think running sprints or doing something to get your heart up and then practicing a speech, why is that a good thing to do? When we get nervous, what do we do? What happens to our, that's right, Bob, nerves. When we get nervous, we start to speak faster, we get out of breath, and when we get out of breath, that's a cue to the audience that what? We're in control and we're in authority, or that we're nervous. And does anybody believe anybody who's nervous? We believe people who speak slowly and with authority. Nope. Persuasion number 4 happens. Persuasion happens in their mind, not yours. People do not change when you tell them that they should. They change when they tell themselves they must. So essentially, there's the Greek orators used what? Way back 2,000 years ago. What did they use? Did they tell, sell, preach, teach, or did they use motivational interviewing? Yeah, they use motivational interviewing. Number 5, more senses, more persuasion. Use sounds. Use the visuals. Use touch. So one of the things that if you can have a prop that they can pass around, that's terrific. What's the touch or prop that I use? And those of you who've been on long enough, what's the prop I used at the end of a 21-point checklist that blew everybody's minds? What's the prop that I use? I put it into their hands. Nick's got it. Cash. Money. So I would count out in $100 and $50 bills. So this is what the kind of money we're talking about. Because when you tell them they can save $7,200, they're pretty impressed, right? You know what the impression of that is compared to counting out? Now I didn't have $7,000 in my little cigar box that I kept the money in. I had $3,200. So if I was going to save them $7,200 and I only had $3,200, what did I do? I changed the time period. So I said, this is what you would save every 6 months. Count them out. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. So what we're doing there is we're taking abstract idea and we're turning it into what? Another example of this is that, in the malls and during Christmas time, we're getting to Christmas time, where they have all those kiosks. One of the kiosks was, this is early on, it was a little drone that you could fly in your house. And I was thinking, who in the heck would need a drone in their house? The only thing it's going to do is it's going to get broke or it's going to break something. And then the guy flagged me down and he put the controller into my hand. And then what happened? What happened when he put the controller in my hand? I wanted it. And when he took that controller back, I wanted it even more. So use sounds. Use great visuals. Put something into their hands that's going to get them more involved with your presentation. Make sense? More senses involved, more persuasion. Number 6, PowerPoint is just a tool. You are the presentation. So if you're just presenting the PowerPoint, you're not going to have a lot of success. In fact, some of the guys that have had the most success have been the days that their projector broke. Why did they have more success when their projector broke? They went from a presentation into a what? They had to interact. All right, Mark. They went from a presentation into a conversation. In fact, I would love for you to break your projector every single time. Of course, that would be, somebody's going to have been to your seminars twice. They're going to say, why every time I come does your projector break? So we obviously can't do that, but we should learn from that the presentation is just simply up there for us to have the PowerPoint is simply there. The slide is simply there for us to have a conversation with people. I remember when we talk about getting an 80% or more appointment ratio at a presentation, it's because you ask a question to the audience. You don't demonstrate something on the slide. Use the slide to ask a question, and then when somebody answers that question, you use their name. You say, "That's right, Martha. That's right, Martha." Everybody hear what Martha said? And Martha, why is that the case? You got it. Martha gets it. Good job, Martha. I mean, she nailed it. That's exactly what see, I'm turning that into a conversation with Martha. And then I have a conversation with Bob, and then I have a conversation with Jerry, and then I have a conversation with Fred, and then a conversation with Mary. So we want conversations with the audience, not to present. Number 7, trust is everything. So how do we build trust? Well, one of the things that we want to do is become vulnerable. So one of the questions that I always get from people is, especially, obviously with guys, they say, should you wear a suit and tie to a presentation? Yes, you should. But then what should be your first question to the audience? Do you mind if I take my jacket off? And what does the audience always say? Yeah, go ahead. Take it off. And somebody will shout out, yeah, take it all off. They make it into a fun, and that's a great way to start a presentation. It means I'm professional, I'm authority, but, I don't want to be an authority up here today. I want to be one of you. So do you mind if I take my jacket off? I don't say that, but by asking, do you mind if I take a jacket off? That's what I am communicating. And then I'll even say, you mind if I roll up my sleeves too and get my loose tie so my get more blood to my brain? And they'll all say, yeah, go ahead. So that is a great way to start a presentation, because you start out as an authority and you ask permission to say, I don't want to be an authority today. I want to be one of you. Let's sit down and work through this together. Does that make sense? So become vulnerable. Also, you can make some small jokes about yourself. And that's why becoming vulnerable is the opposite. What drives me bananas is when a guy spends the first 2 or 3 minutes, or sometimes 5 minutes, talking about, my name is Mike Kasselnick. I own Kasselnick & Clark here in town, and I have a CFP, and I have an RESCP, and I have and I've been doing this, and I've been quoted in CNN, on MSNBC and CNBC. Blah, 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 blah. Is that becoming vulnerable, guys? Or is that the opposite of becoming vulnerable? Do I ever want you to talk about how great you are at a presentation? No, because it's the opposite of becoming vulnerable. Now, you should have a slideshow before the presentation that's giving all, showing you pictures of you with your family. It's maybe little riddles that they can solve. Then that's also the place that you put diplomas and things that you have validating your expertise. But don't talk about how great you are at the beginning of a presentation. That does not help you. It hurts you. It hurts you, because now what's happening to as a boomer, what's happening to my resistance level when you start talking about how great you are? Because there's only one reason you're telling me you're great. Why is that? There's only one reason you're telling me that you're great. Because you're saying, I'm telling you that I'm smarter than you. I'm smarter than you, and you should believe me, and you should move all your money to me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Be vulnerable. How do you project trustworthiness? You be fair. Should you ever have only one opinion, or should you always, like we do in the 200-point checklist, say, the beginning of every script, we always say, what's good about that? What's good about a power of attorney? What's good about joint withdrawal survivorship? What's good about diversification? See, we always start out with what's good, and then after we've agreed some of those things are good, then we have to have them tell us what's bad about it. We have to have approach everything with there's no one thing that's good or bad. Everything has both. We have to approach it with a fair mentality. We have to show integrity, which means saying the same thing over and over and over, and even if it's uncomfortable to say. Competence. That comes with that practicing. Spending 2 or 3 months in a cave, shaving your head. How competent was Demosthenes when he did his oratory? Extremely competent. That's why I talk about when you're with one-on-one, being able to write upside down shows competence. When you're in front of and you're able to, you don't get uptight or breathe fast when you're in front of a group, that shows your competence. It shows that you have lots of ability. Benevolence also equals trust. What do we mean by, how do we approach with a 5Q system benevolence? We give them things for free. So if there are things, information, or better yet, using all of our senses, handouts that would be valuable to them, or some tool that would be valuable to them when they go home, that's going to create trust, because it's giving things we don't get paid for. No one has ever become poor by giving. And that's what I used to tell people when I was making when I was making great money as a person producer. I say, I make $1 million a year doing things I don't get paid for. Because doing the things I don't get paid for is what led the people to trust me that I was different and that I cared. And that's what you guys have, the tools you have with 5Q. Number 8, you must be memorable, active, and meaningful. Memorable, active, and meaningful, especially your message. So your message, you need to have a theme in your presentation that people remember when they go home. I mean, Nike has Just Do It. Don't leave home without. American Express. What's in your wallet? Capital One. I have a dream. Martin Luther King. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The only thing we have is fear stuff. These are things that people will remember. Don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. If I said don't tell, how many of you could have finished that sell, preach, or teach? How many of you could have finished that? Find that thing that people find easy to remember. And if you can implant that in your speech over and over and over again, those of you that have seen a fantastic, top-notch comic, do they revisit a joke, touch on a joke they told earlier 3 or 4 more times throughout their set? Yes, they do. So people love those touch points. Number 9, be simple, be clear. Things to avoid: jargon, wordiness, vagueness. How can you get rid of wordiness, guys? We just talked about that a few minutes ago. How do you get rid of wordiness in a presentation? Remember when he said to write it out again, write it out 4 or 5 times, then put it into bullet points, and then from bullet points, put it into words. What you're doing is you're lessening the wordiness of it. Get rid of vagueness. Do I like the words probably, most times, can happen? Do I like those words? No. Will happen. Going to happen. Does happen. People want black and white. They don't like vague. How many of you like movies where at the end you don't know what really happened? There's no blockbuster that's ever been, no movie blockbuster ever had I wonder what happened at the end. Everybody knows what happens at the end. You know, art house films that net $10 million, yeah, they have a thing at the end where you don't know what happened. But the vast public, 99% of the public, not people who go to art house films, but 99% of the people who go to the big blockbuster, they want a very tied up in a bow ending. Don't use passive voice. You got to get active. Don't use complex words. Don't use lots of numbers and tables. So persuasion can never be performed. It must be facilitated because it has to occur in their head. So that's the importance of having those conversations with the audience versus telling, selling, preaching, teaching when you're doing the presentation. Make sense? So when you master the Cribnos motive, you're doing those 15-minute drills. 5-minute money makers breakdowns every week. That's when you're going to close most clients or every single client you want. Every single client you want. You guys have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to y'all next Monday. Thanks, everybody.